Hi, I'm Vic Searle. I'm a former marketing director and the founder of DATAHAWKS, and I'm just going to get my technology in order here because I'd like to talk to you today about using data to get to know your customers. So just going to share screen, get you in the presenter. Fabulous. I'm so excited to be part of this incredible initiative, the 100-day brand marketing and PR plan for pubs, restaurants and coffee shops. And I'm so excited to be part of an incredible bunch of people who have helped put it together. So Cam Media, Fleet Street Comms, Mimo Media, Smithfield, Supersonic, of course, Two Forks, Bums on Seats, Feed It Back, Wireless Social and Studio Nomad. So how can we get to know our guests? Well, your business is brimming with data and it's coming from a huge range of sources. Most of you are going to have a CRM database, feedback tools, guest Wi-Fi, payment apps, booking engines, and also tools like Facebook and Google Analytics as well. But all of these little pots of data are completely separate, and to really turn it into gold, you need to join it all up. So there are two kinds of data you need to be thinking about at this point. There's the first kind, which is known data. And this is the kind where you can attach a user identification to it. So an email address or maybe a membership number. And then there's unknown data, which is basically anonymous data. And it's the kind of data you find in things like Google Analytics or in your Facebook pixel. And we'll come back to how to use that a little bit further on in the slides. So start with the data that you've got some sort of identifier for, like an email address, and then hang off it as much info as is possible. So, for example, you might have the name and email address of a guest that signed up to your CRM database, but that email address might also exist in your Wi-Fi data. And that's brilliant because it gives us loads of clues about how often they're visiting you, or at least logging into your Wi-Fi, the frequency with which they're visiting you, and also how recently they've been in. And by looking at that email address and working out how many times it appears at different locations across your brand, you're starting to get a pretty good idea of loyalty as well. Because if somebody's been to maybe one or two of your sites, you could sort of argue that that's just convenience. But if they've been to 3, 4, 5, 6 or more, they must really like you, right? So now we keep adding the information that we're getting basically from each platform and just hanging it off that initial email address. So for instance, you might get the comments that they've left you in a feedback platform, or it might be the booking information that they've left you in their booking engine. And soon you're building a really interesting picture of their opinions, of their preferences, but most of all, their behavior. So we need to look at their behavior and we need to decide who is most valuable to us as guests. So say we decide that our most valuable guests are people that pre-lockdown visited at least sort of 3 times a month, had been to us in the run-up to lockdown, so we know that they're still sort of pretty fresh, and maybe they've been to at least 3 of our other locations, which would suggest they were pretty loyal. We can fence those off. We can search for those people in our CRM and we can fence them off so we can take a bit of a deeper look at them. So now we've got a pretty, interesting view about some of our most valuable guests, but there's more we need to learn. What we do know about them is maybe their age, and because we know their age, maybe we know a little bit about their mindsets, or the things that they're into, and maybe the opinions that they might have and their attitudes. We might know gender, we might know recency and frequency, and we might also have an idea of their loyalty to your brand. And depending on the platforms you're using, we might also have an idea about their social interests as well. But what we don't know are things like, we don't know how much they're spending with us or the things that they're buying. And we don't know what their drivers are. So these are the things that they perceive about your brand, that it's fresh or that it's luxury or whatever it is. And we also don't know the triggers that are driving them to visit us. And that could be as simple as the point of sale that they walk past or the length of your queue. But these are the things that make them choose your brand over another. We also don't really know much about how they feel about the brand, you know, the sentiment, and we don't know whether they have any allergens to be worried about. We don't know whether maybe they're a vegan or a veggie. And crucially, we have no idea where they are when they're not with us. But luckily, there are lots of places to find out, okay? And firstly, we should start as we mean to go on as well. And we should be asking the right questions at that very first sign up to make sure we're kind of really, you know, finding out the sort of crucial information about our guests. And that's not going to really help your existing ones, but it will certainly help us sort of build a much faster understanding of our new ones. We could also find our really valuable guests in our CRM, and we could send them a survey and maybe incentivize them to ask plenty of sort of in-depth questions about them. And you know, these questions are really going to depend on your brand or the trading environment we find ourselves in. So if you run a premium brand, you might not really ask questions about price sensitivity, because you know what, if somebody's visiting your premium brand, they're probably not too worried about how much they're paying for their dinner. But if you're a business that has lots of sites in really high footfall areas, maybe that's got a huge brand sort of saturation, like a shopping centre, you might want to ask them questions about the things that trigger them to choose you over a competitor, and vice versa. And if you really want to get under the skin of your guests, you need to commission an insights specialist like Cam Media, because they can run a whole sort of survey and focus groups and a whole piece of work for you. And you should also really check out their video as well, because there's some incredible stuff within there just to see how much you can get out of insight and research. Now, we could also buy some additional data like external surveys or maybe other information that we get from another brand, and even location data, which uses people's phones to track where people are going sort of like throughout their day. And so we can build a picture of the people that are visiting our brand most often and finding out where they are when they're not with us. And you can also delve much deeper into the technology you already have. So things like making sure our social media pixels are set up to capture every single interaction with our website, which helps us retarget them, but crucially, it helps us find out more about their interests and behaviors. So what can we do with this information? Well, I like to base my marketing around the idea of acquisition, conversion, and retention. And basically acquisition, conversion and retention is getting them in, getting them spending money and getting them back as frequently as possible. And so let's say by using surveys or buying additional data, we've managed to build a profile of our really valuable customers. And these are the ones, don't forget, that we decided were really valuable based on their visit frequency, their loyalty and their recency. Now, let's say this is a group of people in this profile, and you're capturing maybe 5% of that really juicy market. Well, that's brilliant, but it means there's 95% of opportunity to still go after. So now we can use our profiles, these are the things that we've discovered about our guests, to find people who share the same characteristics as our valuable guests, but who don't come to us, and we can give them compelling reasons to try it, or try us even. And we can do that by advertising directly to them or by forming collaborations with other brands whose users share the exact same characteristics as ours to increase our reach. So for instance, you know, like when Adidas hooked up with Kanye West, it expanded both of their markets, but there was lots in common in the first place that helped Adidas and Kanye know that this was going to be a good move for both of them. And by using the data in our website, we can also speak directly to the people who have previously shown interest in us and actually been to our website. And we can retarget them to turn that interest into action, whether that's a booking, a purchase, or a CRM sign up. Just like when you're looking for a new mobile phone contract and you've kind of been on all the websites, and the next thing you do, you go on Facebook and your timeline is full of adverts for phone networks. So now we've got our new users and we want to use what we know about them from our data to give them really relevant messaging through our CRM and our social channels and even our website as well. And this all adds up to help increase the frequency of their visits and the amount they spend when they're with us, because it's tapping in. We're using that data to tap into the things that help them make the decision to visit us. So that might be that they're deep love of steak, or it might be the fact that we do a really speedy lunch deal. And of course, it's said that attracting a new user is 7 times more expensive than retaining an existing one. So use all the data that you have at your disposal to make sure you're giving your existing guests a really compelling reason to stay with you too. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, Vic, this all sounds absolutely brilliant, but how do we get started? Well, you've come to the right place. Firstly, start with where you are now. It's crazy out there, and it's really, really overwhelming as well. So work out what your big urgent challenges are over the next few months. We might feel that it's actually better spending our time just identifying our super loyal customers that we had before, just so we can work out how to get them straight back in, rather than using our data to work out whether those people want more vegan options on our menu, for instance. And then log into your data and have a really good look around. Data can seem really, really intimidating, but once you kind of get past all the dashboards and into the raw data, you'll start to see it's all kind of just numbers and columns and symbols. And for instance, there might be a row of columns that are all just packed full of numbers, and they might simply be the arrival and departure times of your guests. So stay cool, have a good look through, and make a note of anything that you think stands out as being really, really interesting. And then once you've pulled all your data together for analysis, you're ready to work out what you need to do with it first. And that might be just about sort of selecting the users who visited you the most before lockdown, just to kind of get them back. And of course, the DATAHAWKS are always here to lend you a hand. So please, please give me a shout. And there's going to be a slide coming up in a minute with an email address on it. But you can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can come and hang around my house if you like. Just give me a shout if you need any help. Now, if you want to take a quick photo of my details, that's me in stripes, you can drop me a message anytime. So thank you so much for watching. Do check out the other videos. There are some gold in there. I mean, this is just such an incredible project. And I want to wish you the very, very best of luck. And here is to a speedy and very strong recovery for our beloved sector. All the best.